My fellow
Martians.
at this hour,
Martian, like death machine things.
and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm
Earth.
to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. These are opening stages of what will be a broad and concerted campaign. To all the men and women of the
Martian.
armed forces now in the Middle East,
And like various locations in northeastern United States that are like the cheapest to film in.
the peace of a troubled world and the hopes of an oppressed people now depend on you. That trust is well placed. I know that the families of our military are praying that all those who serve will return safely and soon. Millions of
Martians.
praying with you for the safety of your loved ones and for the protection of the innocent. For your sacrifice, you have the gratitude and respect of the
Martian squid.
people. And you can know that our forces will be coming home as soon as their work is done.
You're tall, but I'm standing in front of you.
It's a podcast.
Welcome to You're Tall, but I'm Standing in Front of You, the podcast where two friends circling the drain of academia examine the cultural detritus of the 20th century. I'm Devin.
I'm Ethan.
And we're here. We're still in the midst of the September that you should wake me up when it ends.
And it never ends.
We're on part 3 of our series examining the cultural legacy of 9/11. But before we get to any of that, Ethan, we have a correction from the last episode.
Yeah. And we don't like doing these.
No, we do them begrudgingly.
There are a multitude that we could do, but we don't like to do them.
Yeah. And I mean, factual, do send us emails about, factual inaccuracies, analytical disagreements.
If you have Shakespearean poetry you want us to read.
Yeah, any of that, please keep those coming. Those, we read them. But we are not interested in addressing those kind of critiques on the pod. But something we do take very seriously is the allocation of Shia LaBeoufs.
Yeah.
And we fucked up last week. We were so engrossed with Oliver Stone's World Trade Center, we forgot to rate it.
Yeah.
So, Ethan, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, it seems apropos that, I would have given it 9 out of 11 Shia LaBeoufs, but is that too on the nose? I could round it.
Yeah, I mean, that is less on the nose than the movie was, but I have to be honest, I found that film so insidious and despicable that I am forced to be semi-sincere and just make clear I'm giving it 0 Shia LaBeoufs. Absolute dog shit.
I think that the fact that you're using real numbers and not, just any set of rational, you're not going into negatives. I think that's a testament to your
it's a testament to me not even caring enough to hate it in such a way as to come up with some annoying way of saying it's bad. I'm just 0, don't watch it.
Hey, what kind of a schmuck would rate World Trade Center 0 Shia LaBeoufs?
That's exactly the kind of schmucks we are. So now that that's out of the way, speaking of shitty movies, what did we watch this week, Ethan?
This one's on me. We watched Steven Spielberg's 2005 War of the Worlds.
Ethan, I appreciate you taking accountability for this, but I have to say, like, this month is killing me. We need to do like a good movie after this. We need to just do like, I know we've talked about some of our plans for October. I think we need to scuttle them, and it just needs to be like good movies month. Just like 20-minute episodes. We come in like it was good, some interesting characters.
Yeah.
But I actually thought this was ended up being a more appropriate choice than I thought, like a more literal choice than I thought in terms of being like a post 9/11 movie. But like, why did you choose it?
I was trying to find an example of a film that was explicitly made as a post 9/11 film that we could dig into, but maybe not something, trying to be explicitly along the themes of this is post 9/11, but trying to like keep the thematic piece of like, what does the post 9/11 world mean?
Yeah.
And Spielberg made this to be like, this is going to be my post 9/11 film. And by that, he meant seeped in the ideology that like there is a good and an evil, and there's no need to have any nuance to that. It's just, let's just have like 2 hours of destruction porn and then call it a day.
Yeah. And I mean, I thought, I knew that going in, and I saw this when I was a kid. So I had some like, I saw it in theaters. So I had some like vague memories of it. But I have to say, I did not pick up as a kid on how explicit the 9/11 imagery was. Because I was thinking when you chose this, I was like, oh, well, this is a good, like, because we did Spider-Man as sort of the like cusp of 9/11 action movie. And I was like, this is a good one to pick that's like in that same spirit, because it's not going to be like too on the nose, but it was coming out at the same time. Whereas like Man of Steel, which we've talked about in previous episodes, I remember just for like how explicit the 9/11 imagery is. But War of the Worlds, not actually that far off in terms of like intentionally evoking the common imagery of 9/11 news footage, like ash on people's faces, skyscraper destruction, etc. So
yeah. So I mean, despite your low opinion of my cinematic choices, it turned out to actually be something worth talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's not forget I'm the one that chose World Trade Center. And we'll see how Loose Change is. I have to say, I think Loose Change is going to look like Apocalypse Now compared to some of these other films. But, first things first, let's get into the plot. Ethan, do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, okay. It's so Spielbergian. It literally starts with a voiceover by Morgan Freeman. At first I'm like, oh, is this like someone doing an Orson Welles voice? And maybe that's what he was going for. I don't know. But it's Morgan Freeman doing the voiceover. And you know that all good films begin with a voiceover explaining the plot. And that's what it does. The plot being that there are aliens up there. There are nefarious aliens out there watching us, plotting, and they're going to attack. New York City establishing shot. Tom Cruise is a dock worker. Doesn't matter at all.
Well, we get some color with him, like the foreman is like, do some extra shifts, and he's like, I can't, the union regulations.
Wish I could help you, South, the goddamn union regulations.
And I couldn't even tell. It was so, watching Tom Cruise in that role was so blindingly confusing. I couldn't even tell if it was like if it was pro or anti-union the way it was depicting this. Like,
knowing Tom Cruise, it would be neither. Like, he wouldn't put his foot down in any direction, but
he literally is the guy from the first line of Living on a Prayer by Bon Jovi. Tommy used to work on the docks. Is it Tommy in the actual lyrics? Because he has that amount of depth and that complicated of a relationship to his work.
Yep. So he goes home because he can't do any more work for the rest of the film, and his wife drops off the kids. His ex-wife drops off the kids. This is a Spielberg film, so of course it's his ex-wife and her new husband, and of course she's dropping off the kids because it's a Spielberg film.
We have an older son, played by who cares, and we have Dakota Fanning.
Whatever happened to older son actor?
He's done some stuff. I looked it up and I can't remember what he was in. But Dakota Fanning then is the younger daughter. And I have to say the best part of this movie, maybe like an actually pretty good performance, like very impressive.
Yeah. Which is good. Like, yeah, she is a very good actor, which is helpful because I normally find that Spielbergian approach of like, let's tell the story through the children to be tiresome after so many of his films, but she does a good job. But the kids come to visit. Tom Cruise's character is kind of shitty. I don't even know what is his character's name.
I have no idea.
Okay, well, Tom Cruise is kind of a shitty dad. You get that impression. But then, it's Spielberg. One thing I will say,
his name is Ray. Actually, I remember this now because I think it might be a Ray Bradbury reference. Because then later, Tim Robbins' character is named Harlan, which I thought might be a Harlan Ellison reference.
Okay.
I haven't actually read the H.G. Wells novel though, so maybe that's just what the characters are called.
No,
but two iconic, they're iconic sci-fi writer first names. So I think that's what they're going for.
Tim Robbins' character takes some from like multiple characters in the actual novel. Yeah. But one thing I noticed is like how cheap this film is with it as a like cinematic experience. They explain so much of the plot of what's happening through like the voiceover at the beginning and the end, and through these one-off lines because they don't want to show you anything. I don't know if this is their idea of like, we want you to be engrossed in the story of Tom Cruise's character. We don't want you to see these things. We just want you to hear that they're happening, but it seems so cheap.
Yeah, because it like, and you're going to give us some of the details, but formally it's like we're in like a family drama because like the kids are reluctant to be at Ray's house. They don't like being there. Dakota Fanning orders like a hummus plate and Tom Cruise is like disgusted by it. He doesn't know what it is. But then like the details of this invasion are kind of intruding in on the family plot.
Yeah. I mean, they do this not once but twice. They cut to the news explaining that there have been EMPs in the Ukraine. EMPs taking
you telling
out power.
Me about it.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden at it again.
But so there's multiple scenes of that, and then like the storm is happening and you can't really tell, so they feel the need to narrate that, oh, that's so weird, the wind is blowing towards the storm. I don't know why I'm doing that voice because I think it's Dakota Fanning's character, but
well, it's Tom Cruise says that.
Oh, he says
he does not sound like that. This is the thing, is Tom Cruise is not doing any kind of like Tom Cruise is just being Tom Cruise. So it's like he's dressed as a dock worker. He's like being disgusted by hummus, but then he's just like coming on and he's like, that is so weird. The wind is blowing towards the storm.
Yeah, I mean, to bring us back to the World Trade Center film, it's almost like Zoolander's character, where when he's like a miner and he's like he's there with like the pickaxe, but he's very clearly not where he should be. You get that impression with Tom Cruise's character. But the son who had taken the car off on a joyride comes back, and they're talking about how there was all this lightning, and he's like, yeah, 26 times we counted, over and over it hit. It opened like a hole or something. So
Yeah.
again, they're just like letting us know that the lightning opened a hole. That's obviously where the aliens are coming through. They're just
and all the electronics have stopped working. That's important, right?
Yeah,
like the cars shut down.
Yeah,
Phones
again,
aren't working.
Very Spielbergian. Like the electronics aren't working when like you don't want them to, plot wise, but otherwise it makes no sense. His watch stops working.
But it's like it's apparently some kind of like, because it's not an EMP, but it's capable of just stopping all forms of like media from working for an uncertain amount of time.
Well, yeah. Their intention was this was a novel that was created in the 19th century, and so we want to recreate that feeling. So we want to try and remove modernity from the situation. That's why they did it. So it's very cheap, and they don't really hold themselves to that throughout the film. But that's the general idea, I guess, is try and return us to this, like, remove yourself from, media and this and that, and you're like back to basics.
Yeah, they've essentially created a utopia from before all the kids were looking at their phones all the time, right? So like the family has to actually talk to each other. They have to count the amount of lightning strikes, like the old-fashioned way. But
this big storm happens. The lightning hits 26 times in the same place. Tom Cruise goes down to investigate. There are so many scenes in this film that involve crowds, like standing along various different types of like precipices. Is that the plural of precipice?
Sounds good to me.
Precipices, precipi. That like they just stare around a precipice, and then like the CGI thing happens and they all start running, and then they like retreat and they stand around a like other precipice. And this happens during this first scene with the big reveal of the tripod, the big alien,
these giant walkers.
And so it reveals itself. They retreat to,
it comes up out of the ground, this big, like, it's like a 3-legged walking machine thing, kind of like, think like Iron Giant meets like the walkers from Star Wars.
They try to have this aquatic sort of feeling to the tripods while still maintaining H.G. Wells' basic description of like, oh, they're 150 feet tall, they have 3 legs, they're a tripod. That was kind of how they were designed. Industrial Light and Magic. This was all George Lucas, which I'd love to get into in a moment here. But that happens. The aliens are there. They destroy shit.
Kill lots of people.
Yeah,
they vaporize them, so it's like pretty bloodless.
Yeah,
it's like very like kind of PG-13 violence.
Yeah, that's the first scenes with the aliens. They're dusting everybody, and then they just don't do that anymore. The aliens just adapt to what the plot requires. They have various...
Well, because it's giving the 9/11 imagery, because it's like Tom Cruise gets like covered in the dust that was other people.
Yeah.
And then like, he emerges from having run from this initial encounter and is like, covered in gray soot, just like the images you saw in the news after 9/11. He's like wiping it off his face. But then that is not a recurring image. No. It's like just this establishing like mood the film is trying to evoke.
The costume designer made over 60 different versions of Ray's leather jacket to try and show how it's dusty, and then it gets worn down, and then
sounds very authentically blue collar to me. Like
Rebel Without a Cause. How many leather jacket iterations do you think
thousands?
They had? Clearly.
Thousands. I mean, I've been into enough Planet Hollywoods to know there's a few of those floating around out there.
So aliens invade. There are various scenes now for the next hour where like there are masses of humans traveling places, and then aliens come and disrupt those plans. There's a weird scene where like a 747 has crashed that they encounter the next day, which I find odd that they're still doing flights after the like world invasion began. I think of the dude who's on that flight who's like, listen, brother, I know the aliens are invading New York right now, but I'm telling you, a lot's riding on this Fort Lauderdale deal, and I gotta get on this flight. It's the last flight out of Newark. I gotta get on it.
So like they do that. They encounter like a news crew who gives us some more exposition.
Their main plan is to take the car that they have that's working to the ferry. My only understanding of why they choose to, they say like, oh, we got to keep off the beaten path. But my only understanding of why they do this is because there's a ferry in the original novel. I guess that's why they go to the ferry.
Yeah, they do that. I mean, it's like the idea is like the big the we've just seen like aviation's not working, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, how can we move a bunch of people? Oh, like a big ferry. There's like big masses of people trying to get on the ferry before it leaves.
Yeah. They should have just gone over a bridge, but they go to the ferry. The ferry thing doesn't work out. There are these tripods in the water that then destroy the ferry. They join more huddling masses of people. The son decides that he needs to join the military. We'll talk about the son in a moment, but essentially he disappears at that moment. And then they join Tim Robbins' character, which I know we want to dig into.
We won't spoil too much about Tim Robbins, but he's in this basement and he's got some interesting ideas.
So they're there for like 30-40 minutes.
There's like a cat and mouse with like the aliens send down this long, it looks like an electronic penis with an eyeball at the end that's like trying to detect people, and they're like moving around and trying to avoid it. And
kind of has like a Minority Report feel to it, by the way. Yeah, Spielberg's only derivative of his other films. And
they had just done, him and Tom Cruise had just done that together, and this was like their return together just a few years after. Again, we'll get into the details later, but Tom Cruise kills Tim Robbins because Tim Robbins is like not being quiet, essentially.
They are hilariously immediately found by the aliens right after Tom Cruise kills Tim Robbins, and they fall asleep. Like that was a hilarious, like, oh, did you have to kill the guy? Because you're immediately found by the alien penis right after this.
Yeah, you mean I killed like Tim Robbins, who is basically like about to found InfoWars after this. Like he's like trying to jerry rig a computer so he could do blog posts for Breitbart.
Yeah.
And but he's
in this world, loose change is never made because Tim Robbins is murdered by Tom Cruise.
He's like editing the footage. And then Tom Cruise just comes in and beats him to death
with a shovel.
Which is like, we should say, it's not depicted.
No, it's a Spielberg
because it's like
film.
He goes to Dakota Fanning and he's like, close your eyes.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he kills Tim Robbins. But so anyway, then they're found. And
they get captured. But then they destroy the tripod. Then
with the grenades, because like it's very video game boss. Like defeating like methodology, like they're in, like they keep people in these cages attached to the tripods.
And I don't know if you picked up, it's kind of like a nice little multicultural representation of, I guess, what Spielberg envisioned America was, that comes together to destroy that tripod.
Yeah, because it starts sucking up Tom Cruise, because like I guess the tripods like suck the people and then like turn them into blood and then make vines out of their blood. It's unclear what the vines are for, but they're like covering the world in blood vines. And like basically he like grenades one of these guys from the inside, and so he gets out.
They join another huddled mass of people that are walking. They're just various huddled masses of people walking throughout this film. They're going towards Boston. Luckily, because Boston is such a shit city, the aliens just decided not to do anything with it up until that point. So it's entirely intact. But that's where his ex-wife is. So that's where he's been trying to get this whole film.
The aliens were like, about to invade, and then one of them left the like, how do we take over Earth equation on a chalkboard in the hall, and then like Matt Damon walked by, and he was like, oh shit, we don't have to do anything because they're all going to die naturally of disease conveniently now at the end of the film.
Yeah, which they do very quickly. He walks into Boston. All the Mars vines that have been growing are dying.
Yeah, they're turning like like they're basically getting petrified.
Yeah, there's this great part where the soldiers, the US military that just like keeps showing up in these various places and getting destroyed, but then there being more of them. They're shuffling people along, and he comes up, he's like, what happened? You guys take it down? And the military guy goes, no, sir, it was behaving erratically, walking in circles. Then it went down on its own about an hour ago. Again, because they're just filling in the plot with dialogue instead of actually showing things. And the military guy goes, now, please, let's go, keep moving. And then everybody else, the military guy just goes, do not stop. Keep moving, after he just had this like conversation with Tom Cruise, which I found just very amusing. But the aliens all die.
Well, but then because Tom Cruise notices, right, that the shields are down also, because like a bunch of these these machines are like seemingly like just crashing themselves, but then it's like because like the military's been unable to affect these things because they have force fields this whole time. But so he notices that Tom Cruise does that some birds are flying near one of them.
They're landing on it.
And he like in like a very like I'm a like boomer dude that's gonna like explain your job to you kind of way, but somehow has been the only person to notice this. And he goes to the military guy and he's like, look, no force field. And then suddenly the military's like, holy fuck, no force field. We can do the boomy thing. That's what we do. And then this is a literal line of dialogue in this film. And when like I was watching this with subtitles and I saw these words on the screen and I was just like cinema's already dead. We're now like 16 years after its death. Quote, the javelin's the key. Load the Gustav. It's gonna be a tough kill. Which I don't know what the fuck that means and whatever, but it's just like the complete like dialogue just being like just serving the function of being like signifying fancy military stuff is going on. Like we haven't established what the javelin is. No one has any reason to know what the Gustav is.
Listen, we all played Call of Duty Modern Warfare. We all know what this is, and now let's just replicate it.
Now just get down to your local military recruitment office.
But you always need that
and become a drone pilot.
Yeah, like you need the scene where the military redeems itself, you know, where they show that like actually here we can make a difference. And so you have that nice little scene at the end.
Yeah, because they've been getting their ass kicked the entire movie, but not only at the end do they succeed in killing one, which again doesn't really serve a plot function because they're all crashing themselves anyway.
Yeah.
But they also like they kill one while also exhibiting like their special technical knowledge and throwing out as many terms. Like instead of the line should be the force field's down, shoot it. Would actually be like an effective line, like emotionally, and instead it's this fucking bullshit.
Or since they're clearly carrying civilians in or beneath the tripods, maybe just like let them die, and so it just stands there and you can retrieve the people. It very much made me think of like when we were leaving Afghanistan and there was the ISIS attack. So the US is like, well, we have to do a drone strike, which just ends up killing like 10 kids. It's very much like, well, we got to do this thing where the military does boom boom pow to like just show that they can. It's not necessary, and there's going to be collateral damage, but we just show that we can and will do this.
Yeah, like in the scorecard of this war, right? It gets written down like final move, U.S. military brings out the javelin and loads the Gustav for the kill, right? Like that needs to be the finishing move.
Yeah. I love how though, like they shoot it and it just comes crashing down. I didn't even write down the line, but they're like, go see if there's people there after like it crashes into the ground. They knew they were the civilians inside, but
well, I mean, at least they're honest about what the U.S. military's order of operations would be. The second we haven't assessed the situation at all. We just Tom Cruise, this like wandering dock worker, pointed out to us that the force field's down, and like it takes 17 men to shoot this thing. It's not even that big a gun. It's just like they're all seemingly involved in like half of them are just involved in sending the verbal commands down the chain of like the whisper down the alley. And then it's like, all right, cool. We killed that thing that was going to die anyway. Let's see if any of those people survived.
But you know, there's going to be a giant fucking statue to like that army squadron in 50 years in like
it's gonna be like the Iwo Jima statue.
Yeah, they're gonna have the javelin with the Gustav.
I just want to know what would have happened if Mark Wahlberg was there. Is this a cinematic universe in which Mark Wahlberg exists? That's my big. I don't think so, because the invasion would have been stopped.
Well, no, I think it is, because again, notice the aliens did not touch Boston.
Oh, okay. So Mark Wahlberg doesn't even know what's happening, but just the reputation alone, the aliens have left it. But anyway, speaking of Boston, the aliens are dead, and they finally end up at the ex-wife's house.
Yeah, I mean, they're all alive, and the son is alive.
The son is alive.
Yay.
It's complete bullshit that the son is alive. Like,
yeah, but it's a Spielberg film.
We literally see the son like heading towards just like pure death and fire. But he somehow like got to Boston before anyone, and is like, you know, it's like, oh hey, nobody died. Yeah.
And then we end with another Morgan Freeman voiceover, because all good movies end with a voiceover explaining what happened.
Yeah, and what happened is that despite having like planned this invasion for like centuries, because like the tripods were already buried under the ground. I don't know if we mentioned that. Like the aliens did not, you know, think about the fact that like they don't have immunities to different bacteria on the earth. So basically, once they invaded, they were already screwed, and they at some point all contract various illnesses. What
if they knew about the bacteria and they had vaccines to do something about it, but just ideologically they weren't willing to?
This is actually just the anti-vaxxer contingent of Mars. Martian society is fine. But like they instituted a vaccine mandate on Mars, and none of the Martians can like go to Shooter's Pub anymore. Like they can't get their baby back ribs at Chili's. So they like, fuck it, let's go invade Earth. And then they all die, and hooray.
Yay. Victory Earth.
So where to begin with this film?
So I think we can begin with just recognition that this film fucking sucks.
It even sucks. Like, I just want to say, like, because it's not really worth like talking about in terms of the themes, but it even sucks. Like, just like the cinematography is really bad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there was something wrong with the version I was watching, but it was like, was the light was really overexposed all the
Yes.
time. Things looked weird and blurry, and I think it was going for something, but it doesn't work.
It was like the bloom effect is what it was.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
using like all those video games from the mid-aughts, which
Mhm.
like makes everything super overexposed and hard to see. I don't know why, and they didn't do it the whole film, but they did it for
Especially
various
early
scenes.
on.
Yeah.
And I spent the entire time being like, is there something wrong with my television?
Yeah.
Like, and that's definitely something like in my memory from seeing it in theaters, I don't remember. But it has not aged well. It does not look good.
No, and I mean, this had what, a production schedule of 70 days. It was filming, and then 3
One day
months
too
of
many.
yeah. And then there was production was 3 months after that. So I mean, they like fucking churned this film out, and you can really tell. But I mean, we can start with just our whole theme this month is around 9/11, and you mentioned how this film very explicitly references the imagery of 9/11, I guess maybe the ideology of post-America 9/11 in many ways. That's a big part of this film.
Yeah. And it comes down, it's not just in the visual references, which we talked about, because that very much, like, we as viewers, like, it's trying to evoke memories of 9/11 in the viewer, right? It's trying to make you feel the way you felt. And at this point, what, only like 5 years removed from the event. But very ham-fistedly on the level of like dialogue, right? Where there's multiple references to terrorists, and it's usually taking the form of like speculation that is this a terrorist attack?
Yeah, I don't know if you were aware of this, but we talked about there's this one scene where the son decides like, I've got to join the Marines, which is like strange why he wants to do that, but it's like a thing he has to do. Do you know where that came from?
No.
So the screenwriter talked about how he was thinking of teenagers. It's so gross. He was thinking of teenagers in Gaza who were throwing bottles and rocks at tanks. And he's like, oh, at that age, you don't fully consider the ramifications of what you're doing, and you're just caught up in the moment and passion, whether it's a good idea or not. The idea being that, him joining the Marines, that's like kids in Gaza throwing bottles at tanks, attacking those alien ships. It's sort of like it's such a gross analogy that this dude made.
Yeah, I want to, I don't even want to say what this quote makes me want to do, right? But like, this understanding of like, resistance to occupation happening in Gaza as like a silly thing you do when you're young and you don't know what's they don't realize how this is going to affect their future career prospects. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But right, and there's like these exchanges of like, who is it? Is it the terrorists? Tom Cruise says, no, this came from someplace else. What do you mean, Europe? No, Robbie, not like Europe, right? Like, because Europe is reasonable, right? Like Europe is normal or something.
That's not where the terrorism comes from. Could you imagine terrorism in Europe?
Impossible.
Could you imagine such a, I can't even conceive of what that could possibly look like.
I would be, if you asked me to think of any examples of terrorism in Europe, I would be in a lot of trouble because I wouldn't be able to think of anything. Yeah. It's really troubling to try to think of a single example.
Yeah. I think there's like, just broadly speaking, in terms of 9/11, like that's why Spielberg made this film, was to kind of be a contrast to his films that took place pre 9/11, where
Mhm.
aliens, extraterrestrials, he was trying to be a bridge and saying, we need to put aside our prejudices and like recognize that the unknown is not necessarily scary. We can like find common ground by like seeking cooperation and understanding. Apparently in the post 9/11 world, he's just like, well, fuck that. The unknown can also just be nefarious and just wants to fucking kill us.
And yeah, the film needs its adversaries, enemies, to be these fantastical others in order for its crude morality to hold water, right? Like in previous Spielberg films, the alien is almost this sort of like very kind of almost like naive symbol of wonder and like what else there might be in the universe, right? And then it's like Spielberg is trying to take on 9/11 as an event, because we're going to talk about him more at the end, but he's not a nuanced or sophisticated filmmaker, right? He's essentially a maker of fairy tales. And so like he can't deal with any of the like social historical complexity of what actually informs the conflicts surrounding 9/11. And so like in order for him to make a 9/11 film, it has to be about aliens, because it allows him to unproblematically make the enemy entirely other without having to have any kind of consciousness that not only could be represented but can be represented.
Yeah, and that's his line, which hilariously was in Reader's Digest. He says, they, the aliens, are a wake-up call to face our fears as we confront a force intent on destroying our way of life. I think he means way of life as like, we're just not bothering anybody, is probably what his intention is.
Well, I just hope that like during Spielberg's meetings with the CIA that they were picking up the tab at lunch, right? But, no, this is just like full hog, post 9/11 ideology.
And what I think is so gross about that, on top of just it at face value, is that War of the Worlds, as like H.G. Wells' original novel, is explicitly anti-imperialist. It takes this vision of social Darwinism that existed at the end of the 19th century and continued beyond that, of course, but this vision of social Darwinism where the British Empire would just, land on some foreign shore and massacre the civilians in order to exploit the resources.
And that was good for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Is also the idea.
Right. That was like the predominant theme. H.G. Wells' novel upends that and says like, well, let's think about this from the perspective of like, what if an extraterrestrial force landed in Great Britain and just fucking killed all of us in order to exploit our resources, much in the same way that we do to indigenous peoples all over the world. So it is a explicitly anti-imperialist novel that is then upended in this way that like it supports an imperialist agenda of othering the unknown, of just assuming that we are always in danger, that the unknown is always seeking to cause harm,
and that it has nothing to do with anything we've done.
Yeah, we are absolutely innocent in this whole endeavor, trying to just live our lives, but these unknown nefarious forces are coming in to try and destroy us at any moment.
Yeah, and I think to the extent that any of that anti-imperialist critique smuggles its way into this film, right? It's in the form of Tim Robbins, who is summarily beaten to death by Tom Cruise. But is this an okay time to jump into Tim?
Please. Please.
Tim Robbins is an interesting guy. I've seen Tim Robbins perform music live
Wow.
in 2004.
Was this the same show where you were recommended to watch Loose Change? I guess it wasn't out in 2004.
No.
Okay.
But it's probably the first show I went to, I wanted to go to. I saw Pearl Jam play in Reading, Pennsylvania as part of the Vote for Change tour that was not,
and boy, did we.
It was not directly endorsing John Kerry, but it was essentially endorsing John Kerry.
Vote for Change.
Yeah.
I guess that wouldn't be explicitly endorsing John Kerry if it's Vote for Change, but okay.
But it was like, it was one of these dumb things that don't work where it's like, let's spend millions of dollars having rock concerts to try to get white people that go to them to register to vote instead of like organizing working class communities of color or anything. Why would we do that? Yeah. Why would we talk to our neighbors?
We're doing anything to benefit those communities in between elections.
We're actually, like earning votes, doing stuff. But, so like John Kerry's corpse at this point is being held up with strings. And I got to say to the people that embalmed John Kerry, fantastic job. He's like, we made it all the way through the Secretary of State run. Like that's just, you can't get craftsmanship like that anymore.
This is the real triumph over the Soviet Union as Lenin's corpse is rotting in the mausoleum of the Kremlin. John Kerry endures.
John Kerry is negotiating with people. Like with just like, we've got strings moving his arms up and down, and somebody's like in the next room that he doesn't even know how to ventriloquize. It is just like, well, what if you don't make nukes? But anyway, like, so I saw Pearl Jam and Death Cab for Cutie open for them. What? But then opening for both of them was Tim Robbins' band Gob Roberts, named after his film Bob Roberts, who were basically just like a punk rock band doing like covers. Like they covered an X song. I remember they had a song about like John Ashcroft and Jerry Falwell. These were like the villains of the 2000s for those listeners who remember being alive and of whatever of a left there was back then. But, Tim Robbins is like a political guy. And in this film, he is kind of has a bit of it's an ideology. It's very interesting because I'm not sure how to typify it, because we were making the jokes about like InfoWars and Loose Change, right? Because he does have this like ranting, conspiratorial mind, but he also takes on some of the language of like a anti-colonial resistance, right? Like, and like he has this line at some point that's like, because he's saying to Tom Cruise in these rants about how like we're going to bring these guys down. No occupation ever succeeds. And, hearing this in 2006, what are you thinking of if not the US occupations in the Middle East, right? And he's right.
Yeah. That's why he gets shoveled.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. The film wants him to be irrational, but like he's kind of right. And the weird thing is he's killed. The film wants to absolve itself of his model of resistance, which is like an ideological, like we are going to fight for our country, for our, we are going to fight against the occupying force. This type of resistance that is expressed in the language of like insurgency and even like indigenous resistance, which is not to say that that's not problematic, but, and then the circumstances of the film, right? Because then Tom Cruise finds himself in the cage of the walker and ends up becoming a revolutionary, right? He takes down one of these walkers with these grenades and also incites a collective resistance with all the people who've just been sitting in the cage waiting to die, spurred on by a military guy, pull him out and enable this. But the film like needs Tim Robbins's form of like ideological revolutionary to die so that Tom Cruise's like, I was just forced into this by circumstances revolutionary can live.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Cruise is very much the vote for change kind of character in this, where he's forced into the situation where he has to take action in order to survive. Whereas Tim Robbins is like, no, this is an occupation. We need to do something proactive. So it tries to absolve itself of that. Not very well, but.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really like that really gets at the film's politics. Is it's acknowledging these truths, but then it needs to shut them up. But then it's like, oh, but history will produce resistance, but it doesn't want to, we don't want that to be an organized resistance. We want it to be spontaneous, incidental. We don't want it to lead anywhere, right? Because Tom Cruise is the kind of revolutionary where he brings on a walker, and then the minute the military can take care of it, he's like, great, I'm going to go see my family, right? Whereas like Tim Robbins might actually have some ideas of what the like post-invasion world order looks like.
Yeah, and to be frank, America has more guns than people. Every single scene in this film is just wandering masses of people just like aimlessly wandering about and then being murdered by the machines. Like, you're not telling me that like Chuck down the street isn't going to like load his 12 gauge shotgun and like take some shots at the fucking Trident.
Yeah, speaking of that, there's this big scene where, because Tom Cruise does have a gun for the first portion of the film. And there's this big scene where it's like Tom Cruise has a gun and he has the car, that the only car that works. So he's like in this position of power, but he's going through this mass of people and people aren't liking it and they start breaking into the car and stuff. And then there's this struggle and there's one other guy in the crowd that has a gun and they're both just handguns. And he basically steals the car and, the details don't matter, but something my partner pointed out to me during that scene is they're like, the least realistic part of this film is that a mass of that amount of Americans, there are only 2 guns in it.
Yeah. The thing that really took me out of it is there's all this chaos where people are like smashing his windows trying to get in, and then he shoots the gun up in the air and everyone backs away. Like, and there's a line where the one person goes, whoa, dude, calm down.
Really like they would just immediately rush him.
He's
got
done.
Like and also I just want to point out he shoots 2 warning shots into the air, not 1. So he has like 6 bullets or whatever. Maybe this holds 12. I don't know guns, but he wastes at least 2 bullets on warning shots. He's down to max 10, probably like 4 or something. There's like 7,000 people.
Yeah.
But
I love how 7,000 people were like, we got to get on the ferry. Also, I know where the ferry is. Let's all head towards the ferry.
Yeah. But also, like, I want to get in this car because I want to get there a little sooner.
Yeah. Like, car, I'll be on the ferry in the car.
Yeah, and the guy with a gun's just going to catch up to me because I'm going to be waiting in line for the ferry. But this is the kind of Americans this film wants to create, right? It's like, you follow certain kinds of rules that are ultimately self-serving, but then you're self-serving in a very particular way that's not like explicitly violent, that isn't specifically outward, isn't too loud, right?
Yeah.
You just quietly go about your business and only care about yourself or your family. It's very it's just very capitalist in that way.
I mean, but you mentioned the family. I mean, maybe you can speak to like what this film has to say about the ideology of the family, because that is a part of this film.
Yeah, because I mean, like the big ending is the restoration of the family, and this is really oversold by the fact that the son lives.
Yeah,
because it's like one thing if like the son has died, and then like what remains of this family, which includes like an ex-wife and her new husband, grandparents who are played by the protagonists of the 1953 film in a cameo.
Really?
Dakota
I
Fanning, yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah.
Okay.
Dakota Fanning and Tom Cruise, if they like then have to come together, that's still very ideological, but it's like at least like, well, something was lost, but we're making the decision to continue being a family, even though our family has been partially destroyed. But like, and that I guess is what the film initially stages, because it's like Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning standing there, and then like the door opens and we see everyone but the son. And then the son emerges, and it's like your special treat for properly falling into the ideology of the family is that the son didn't die. And it's not, we get no explanation for it. And it's like unclear, what is this family unit that's going to continue? Because this new husband guy is just like lurking in the background, like, I don't know if he's a part of this moving forward, if they're going to be some kind of polycule situation. But, the film is telling us, if we do follow the rules, if we are proper Americans, if we're not Tim Robbinses, we're not making too much noise and trouble, right? We help out the military. We don't usurp them, right? We do what is demanded of us in the moment, and we look out for our family. That, if not our literal family, because like we don't need to read it as like his son literally survives, because it's not real, right? But like in its imaginary, it's like we are rewarded with the fact that the idea of the family survives. It's like a liberal progress idea, basically, right? It's like, don't expect eruptive change. Don't ask too many questions, and like over time, things work themselves out. So do we want to talk about Tom Cruise, or do we just want to go straight into Spielberg?
We'll just say briefly, this film came right out as Tom Cruise, literally at the premiere of this film is when he revealed his relationship with Katie Holmes. And then he went on Oprah. This apparently strained the relationship between Tom Cruise and Steven Spielberg. So take
the incident on Oprah did.
It was some of that. Apparently, like Steven Spielberg recommended a doctor, and then for some reason Scientologists like picketed that doctor, and Spielberg was upset about this. So they had like a strained situation after this film.
So that's interesting. So this is kind of like the last film we're getting, like the last gasp of like kind of 90s Tom Cruise before he becomes the like guy that's jumping on a couch on Oprah, and then later has to kind of try to like reconstruct his career after that. And he's not good in this. Like, he's just doing exactly what you expect. It's just like, it's a very like, Tom Cruise is a profoundly generic person in how he acts. Like, so generic that it's creepy. Like, he doesn't seem real. And I actually like him a lot as an actor when the director that's working with him understands that and is playing with it, right? So like films like Magnolia and Eyes Wide Shut that are kind of like almost being critical of Tom Cruise in the way he's casted. Even a movie like Edge of Tomorrow, which isn't like a profound film, but like is definitely taking joy in the fact that it's like killing Tom Cruise over and over again, right? It's like having fun with that. But this is just such a sincere use of Tom Cruise, where it's like, oh, he's a dock worker and he's American, and he's the guy that's going to be the hero of post 9/11 America. And based on what happens to him after this, the like America answers like, no thanks, we want somebody else.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise is just he's so specific in his generic nature that, again, like we said at the beginning of this, like, oh, what is Tom Cruise's character name? Because it's just Tom Cruise is who the character is. But the other, of course, looming figure in this film is Steven Spielberg.
Yeah, and like, what is there to even say about it, right? He is like the king of the middle brow blockbuster, right? He's like the director equivalent of Tom Cruise in a lot of ways. He's not too hot, he's not too cold. His films don't really say that much, but they end up saying a lot by saying nothing. And he was in some ways the ideal, and in some ways, I guess, like the tragically ideal figure to try to define, and I think try to define in a failed act what the post 9/11 blockbuster would look like, right? And then like the dynamics of the market take it somewhere else. But
yeah, I mean, it is very appropriate that we would talk about Steven Spielberg's interpretation of the post 9/11 world, because, you know, what better encapsulation of that generic American ideology than like this sort of Steven Spielberg film. And so, of course, he's going to have his take. Of course, it's terrible. And he just kind of wanders himself into this film. He like talked with Tom Cruise, like, hey, let's like make a film. What do you want to do? Tom Cruise gave him several options of films they could do together after Minority Report. And one of them was War of the Worlds. And Steven Spielberg was like, oh yeah, I read that as an undergrad in college. I read that in a creative writing class. Let's just do that. Let's do that story as a film. He's phoning it in, as he tends to do. I mean, I think I mentioned this before, but this was like a 70-day filming, 3 months production. It was so sped up. But the thing I really want to pull out from this was the first moment where Steven Spielberg used previs, which is pre-visualization, as his filming process. Pre-visualization being, you know, back in the day, we used 2D sketches. We turned that into storyboards like directors would. And then that's how you sort of plan out what you're going to film. These days, when you think of like the Marvel films, they have filmed it in essence years ahead of time. They have a previs of, hey, here's how all the fight scenes are going to work. We've already worked out all the CGI. Everything's worked out ahead of time. This was the first moment where Steven Spielberg walked into his friend George Lucas's compound with ILM and said, what can we do here? And Lucas gave him the previs treatment. And Spielberg said, this is amazing. I can do, he calls them, quote, impossible shots, unquote, which you start to see somewhat in this film, like where they're just like throwing the actors around everywhere in ways that like you can't actually film that shot. It's all digital.
Yeah. Yeah, and this film is profoundly digital. Like it just feels digital in a way that like, because like the technology's not quite there yet also. So you just really feel
it never is.
Like, yeah, no, I don't want to imply it's there now either.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, I think this is a real inflection point because, again, Steven Spielberg is such a mediocre, like, play it by the book director, but he's like, in that way, the quintessential American director in a lot of ways. And this is his first film where he kind of does away with the storyboards. In one interview I watched of him, he says, God, I wish I had it being previs on Close Encounters. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how terrible that would have been?
And then the thing, you know, he talks about like, oh, I can do these impossible shots now, but he really just recreates a lot of iconic shots from previous films, right?
Yeah, it's derivative. I mentioned a few of these earlier, but like he recreates a few different shots. He recreates like when that alien penis eye thing is going through the basement. That's kind of like the Velociraptor scene in Jurassic Park, where they're all hiding behind the cupboards and in the freezers trying to hide from the Velociraptors. I think the most explicit comparison that was, I'm sure, intentional with Steven Spielberg was at the very end of the scene, the alien ship, the tripod like opens, and it's sort of like the opening of the giant spaceship at the end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but in this case it's like a dying alien like droops out and suffocates in that moment. And it's just derivative of his other films, which I think maybe he intended as like, this is the post 9/11 world, but it's not a good look. It's not a good look, and it's derivative. Yeah,
but I mean, in some way, that is like kind of like a appropriate example of what the post 9/11 world is, right? Because what is it? It's the same images we've seen again and again, just being fed back to us, repeated ad nauseum, turning our brains to mush, right? No new ideas. The only guy with some new ideas in this is Tim Robbins, and his head has been bashed in with a shovel by Tom Cruise.
Again, though, we don't see him killed by Tom Cruise. And I was just waiting for the moment where at the end scene when they opened the door in Boston, behind the family is Tim Robbins waving because he made it. He made it. No one dies.
I wish it had been Tom Hanks. And then the two Toms just come together and embrace. And they're like, we did it, baby.
We did it.
The American Century Part 2.
What a project it will be. And with that, how many Shia LaBeoufs would you give War of the Worlds?
War of the Worlds, I give like 2 Mark Wahlbergs plunging into a bottomless pit of despair in Shia LaBeouf's.
Yeah, the original novel came out in 1898. I'm going to give this an 18 out of 98 Shia LaBeoufs.
You know, that seems right.
Yeah.
That seems about right. And it's not even bad enough to get a pure 0 like World Trade Center got. Like the purity of absolute 0 is something only that film could achieve. This film is just like, you can't even hate it that much because even you, like, and when I say you, I mean me, the simpleton viewer who wants to be critical of it, at the same time, it's just like scratching your dumb little monkey pleasure centers with like, remember Jurassic Park? Remember Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you know, kind of shit. And it's just like, you know, it's like eating a gigantic bowl of mashed potatoes with no butter and no salt. And you're just like, well, I'm full, but I don't feel like I've eaten anything.
If ever you need a nail in the coffin of the myth of meritocracy, this film made over $700 million. So thanks to Steven Spielberg and Tom Cruise for the cinematic masterpiece that is War of the Worlds. I have a speech impediment and I didn't mispronounce the name once.
Great job.
Thank you. That's all I wanted.
And we'll see you next week for the final episode of our 2911's month with the Tim Robbins directed Loose Change. Thank you for listening to You're Tall, But I'm Standing in Front of You. Please find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the podcast app of your choice, and do give us a 5-star rating. You can follow us on Twitter at YourTallPod, follow Ethan at Mathisipi, or follow me at Stale Cooper. If you have thoughts about what you'd like us to watch or read next, especially if it's your Shakespeare poetry, article stuff, DM us on Twitter or email us at yourtallpod@gmail.com. Previous example, not based on a true story. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't checked my email today.